So you repeat the same drills at training, for example, a bit like what you would do with Pep, in the sense that you work on a pattern of play where, let's say, your right back comes inside, and then you do that again and again and again until they almost don't think about it, they just do it naturally.
Yeah. I think it's more about spaces though. So Pep is the one who revolutionized with it. For me, it's just it's an understanding of the game now for me where you think about spaces and players have got to be comfortable to be inside, outside, and they will train in all these different roles more than position.
Okay.
But yeah, you have a lot of pattern play. You have pattern play for defensive side. I still think live is always the best way to improve, but managing load and stuff nowadays, you can't always do it. And you try and build a little bit of a curriculum, if you can say it this way, towards your ideal of the game. Yeah.
It's interesting that you mention roles instead of positions.
Yeah.
I did a story a year ago. These people it was analytics based, but they did a study, and essentially they're big proponents. It's a guy who worked with Mancini, actually, with the Italian Federation. Big proponents of the idea that we shouldn't think about positions.
Mm-hmm.
We should think of roles, that players have different characteristics. So, Haaland and Agüero both are center forwards, but they interpret the game differently. So they created categories. So you buy into this, yeah?
Yeah, but I think it's just logic. You can call it a position; it's still a role. You can have a fullback that you call. You can call a fullback, but the role. If you decide that the role is inverted, then that's the role. If you decide that the role is on the outside, but the profile has to match the role more than the position. Does that make sense? Yeah. So whatever you play a 4-4-2, you have a winger. The winger can be a wing back in a 4-4-2. All he has to do is on the side of the ball to drop, and then he has to defend like a wing back. It's whatever you call it to be. So that winger has to defensively still be aggressive and show signs of. So all these things are but then it's still task based. So what do you want the role? What do you want the task? What tasks are associated to the role? And then what does that player show you in terms of profile and what he's able to do and feel comfortable with? You mentioned Haaland and Agüero. It's more difficult for Haaland, and maybe right now, because he's still young, so young, he can get better in everything still. But maybe it's more difficult for Haaland to come and drop into midfield to be an extra man, whereas for Kompany was a little bit easier. And that type of idea, then you shouldn't box yourself in, but it gives you a little bit of, it fills pieces of the puzzle when you try and set up a game plan.
And then does that make talent ID for you as a coach, as a manager, even more important? I was talking to Arteta the other day, and I think he's got a lot of his talent ID. I mean, Zinchenko and Gab and Juls are the two biggest example really of exactly what he wanted from a left back that they were going to sign, and he would have never signed Roberto Carlos, even at his best, or Paolo Maldini, for example. However, Zinchenko ticked all the boxes of everything he wanted, so they went and get exactly the problem.
I still think he would have signed.
I know, me too. As I was saying it, I was like, okay, maybe not those two, but get a cliche, just for the joke of the fun. But you see what I mean? Does that make your talent ID, you and your recruitment team and your scouts and your sponsor, whatever, even more important? Because I want my right winger to be exactly like that, so I need the player that plays exactly the way or has the characteristics that I need him to be.
I think it's, but that's evolved to. It's not just that style of play. I'm sure if you go into Atletico Madrid and Simeone's team, I mean, they defend a bit more compact, but there's volume, there's mobility, there is grit and aggressiveness, and then there's speed for transitions and all this kind of stuff. And then there's still games that they dominate where they need players to receive between the lines, because they're still not going to be the team to play long ball, second ball, and so I think as long as you've got that side of it very clear for yourself, then you'll find the players that you need. But in terms of also, like, good players adapt. Good players adapt. I mean, Kyle Walker was the classic fullback up and down, and he became one of the best inverted fullbacks in the world. And if you ask him tomorrow to go on the outside, he can still do it. You ask him inside, he does it. Does he have to flatten off in part of the back line? He does it as well. And that gives you a little bit more control of the ball when they're good players. And I'm no doubt that Gael Clichy, if he was a little bit younger, would have done a fantastic job as well with it.
I mean, he still fancies himself as number 10, you know.
Yeah. It would have been perfect, in fact. It was just 10 years too late.
But I'm curious about that, because I mean, Walker's an excellent example.
Yeah.
I'll use a non-City one here. When you do the talent ID piece, there's also an element of what the player is being asked to do by the system of the coach that he's in at the time. When you look at him, and you may have a different idea. I'm thinking of, for example, Andy Robertson at Liverpool. Effectively, there's some parallels. Still plays wide, still on the left, but it's a different movement. It's a different. That's got to be the real skill, the real value added. That you can look at Kyle Walker and you can imagine, based on what Kyle Walker is being asked to do by his current manager, that you can imagine him doing these other things, right?
Yeah. But the thing as well is, like, you got to be very creative, because I don't think any of us thought that Fabian Delph could have been a left back. I don't think he thought it. Zichenko was a number 10. So I remember the amount of hours we spent, and I spent quite a few hours with Zichenko as well, and Delphi as well, because they were both playing left, and at that time I was playing quite often on the left because we had two right-footed. And I remember thinking that cross is going to come over my head, and those two guys are behind me. So we spent quite some time just talking and going through some stuff and sharing experiences and about this thing. But the real idea that was, obviously from Pep, it takes a lot of creativity to do it, and you got to be brave to do it. And I mean, as well, you're going against so many perceptions. But in the end, it was logical, because these players gave us so much control of the ball. They were aggressive, they were on the front foot. By that time we had 70% of the ball most games. So you defend transitions, you defend longer spaces, and the very few moments where you have to defend a bit deeper, usually you get away with it because the other team doesn't even see clear anymore. They just want to get rid of the ball. And so as long as it's clear, it made so much more sense to go more that way. And it was logical. And but I mean, there's the funny thing on fullbacks, it's still a perception thing, because I remember as well, obviously in Belgium I had a few moments where I had to play with an inverted fullback, and it was like, well, fullbacks, no, you've got to let them go. And the whole country, the whole football country in turmoil, because the fullback should be on the rail on the outside and go up and down, whereas obviously the football culture in the bigger leagues is a little bit more evolved in that sense, but that was okay. But what I wanted to say was more like, I had this discussion with one of the fullbacks, I won't say who at some point, but he was saying, like, Vinny, why can't I go up all the time? Why should I always stay back? And I said, well, and I remember there was a Nike box shoes. I was a player, by the way. And I was like, okay, so let's put the three positions up front. We got a winger, striker, winger, then we got two number 10s, that's how we played. The two number 10s, and I said, okay, how many goals did that winger? It was about between 15 and 20 goals and about 10 to 15 assists. I said, how many goals the striker? 30 goals. How many goals and assists the winger? On the other side, the same, 15, 20, 10 assists, 15 assists. And then the two number 10s, 15 assists, 10 goals, 15 assists, 10 goals, whatever. I said, and you as a fullback, how many goals and how many assists? And it was like, so why would it make sense to let you go there with these guys, you're getting in the way. And he was like, okay, I get it. So I was really hard on this. So just give them the ball, let them go and score, and
You're a player when you said that. As a manager, you might have used slightly different language, yeah?
Yeah, I was a player.
Exactly.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.